Hey Hodies, welcome back to my channel. My name is hautemesstom and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to apply a full face of my absolute favorite top-notch products in every category. It's like my favorite of favorites. If I had to start my makeup collection all over again, what is the most important thing in each category for me to own? Again, if you are new here, my content really revolves around loving my makeup collection as it currently is. But when I do want to bring something in, I try to be very discerning about like, is it gonna be good for me? I try to unpack like makeup marketing and all the kinds of schemes that makeup brands try to pull the wool over our eyes with. That's what I do here. So if that sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe. Make sure you like this video, and I'm also on patreon.com/hautemesstom if you would like to support me financially, but there's absolutely no pressure to do so. I'm just so happy that you are here, but I do want to thank all of my beautiful patrons for supporting me on Patreon. I did this video a couple years ago, and I know that YouTubers will kind of refresh this, like Kaki does her top shelf series, which isn't like her favorite of favorites, or like it's like what she's using a lot in that moment. I know that Michelle Wong does this like every year and she updates it, and so I wanted to go through and see if mine had updated at all. The last time I did this video, I think I called it like if I had to start over and I can only get one thing in each category. That's I think what I titled it last time, but like this time we're just kind of going like my top shelf, the be all end all. Like if I only could have one foundation, which foundation am I going to continue to buy if I can only have one of each thing? So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do a full face using all those products. So since we are doing some makeup application, I'm going to zoom you in a little bit, but we're not going to get like so close that I feel like you need to see all of the details. So I start with eyeshadow. And so first things first, eyeshadow primer. My last video, I think I did it in my Messmas, like 2021, end of 2021. And at that point I was using the Atelier eye primer, which I really loved, but that company no longer exists. I had to find a new eyeshadow primer. I don't know if this is the one that I'm going to settle on, but it is the one that I am currently using, so I will tell you about it. This is the Blink eyeshadow primer, and it performs very similarly to the Atelier eyeshadow primer. Also performs pretty similarly to the Too Faced eyeshadow Insurance, which was what I was using right before this. This is a little bit tackier than the Too Faced shadow Insurance, but I would still use like a glitter glue if I was, you know, putting down glitters or whatever. But with satins and mattes, this helps them last all day. It makes them look really good, really vibrant, and you know, it's great. It's a great eyeshadow primer. It seems like I always find into like off-kilter brands for my eyeshadow primer, like not Too Faced, but like how many of you have heard of Atelier before this video or before I started mentioning it on my channel? I have like an independent makeup store here in Pittsburgh called The Gilded Girl, and I think I want to do a video with her, Liz. I kind of want to like interview her, but I also like want to buy like a full face of product from there and kind of, you know, maybe do that one day. I'm not really sure. I haven't really solidified that. It's a thing I think I want to do because she has a lot of brands that I feel like we don't discuss a lot. And at The Gilded Girl, that was the first time I ever interacted with Ritual Defee products. And Ritual Defee is like one of the brands that I hold in pretty high regard at this point. So it's just interesting to see an independent makeup store and the brands that they carry. I imagine that a lot of the brands that we see at Ulta and Sephora have some kind of like exclusivity agreement for the most part. And that's why you don't, you know what I mean? So like these brands are just like normally very interesting, not your normal brands. Blink eyeshadow primer is in. Atelier eyeshadow primer is out. Although if Atelier still existed, I would still be using that one. I am using translucent powder to set this, but this is not something that I would need, and it's not the powder that I'm settling on, but I am going to use some of this Pat McGrath setting powder. I'm literally just trying to finish this up. So this is not part of it, but I am using it, and I didn't want to not tell you that I was using it. Eyeshadow. I think this is a little bit different. I'm choosing to pick an eyeshadow palette because I think if I were to buy singles, I would have to like curate my own color story. And while I feel like I have an eye for color, I don't think that I would be able to create a pretty cohesive color story. Because if I do create a color story, it typically all tends to be like monochrome, grungy greens, murky yellows, green-based multi-chromes, and sparkly toppers. And like, well, that is certainly a look. And one of my favorite looks. I felt like I needed to be more practical, and I'm only limiting myself in this. I don't think that anyone else who like does this type of activity really limits themselves, but I thought really critically about it. And when I thought about the eyeshadow palette, whenever I wear it, I feel the most beautiful. And I feel like every time I use this palette, I get consistently great looks, and I don't feel like I have to fuss too much. And to me, if I was going to start over, that's where I would want to start. Like if my top tier. That's where I would start. And this may shock some of you, but it is the Pat McGrath Labs Divine Rose one. And this actually shocks me. So last year I picked the Natasha Denona 28 pan green palette. I have now in my mind think about that more as singles, and it is a great palette, but I never, once I use them as singles, I rearrange them. And so the palette doesn't look like it initially did. And I don't even know if all the shadows that are in that Natasha Denona palette are the ones from that Natasha Denona palette. It's hard for me to like to discern what goes where. So I ended up picking this, and here's why. I get on with this like so well, and I like the two mattes that are in here. They're very easy and wearable. You can do something really pretty with the two shimmers in here that aren't down here. And it's one of the rare occasions in the Pat McGrath palettes, the mothership palettes, where like this part right here, like the special shades, I don't need to always use them. So that's why I picked this palette, is like I like it kind of all the way start to finish. Now it's not an exciting palette. It's, you probably are like, Tom sometimes does really exciting looks. Won't they miss that? The truth is, I don't know. I do love playing with color, and I do love doing that every now and then, but like my default is like simple. My default is things that I just feel like are reliable. And if I was gonna pick like a bunch of multi-chromes and like a select few mattes as like being my be all end all, I don't think I would like that much. And because I don't always want to be wearing multi-chromes, and I don't always want to be doing the most. And there is some play here, like these really pump up the jam, if you will. You can do something really bright and sparkly and excessive that like isn't every day. Every day is more of what I'm doing, and I think it's more realistic. And now I could do that with greens, but I just think that if I'm buying a pre-made palette, which in this sense, if I'm starting over and I'm picking my favorite thing, it's gonna be this, because I know that I have shadows that I love more than these. I wouldn't want to go through the fuss of buying single shadows if I'm like starting over. You know what's so funny is that Pat McGrath shadows are like not really my favorite eyeshadows. I mean, I like the special shades, and I actually like her satins and shimmers a lot, but I don't really like her mattes. But I find that I get on with this particular palette the most, but I think it's because this matte right here is like pretty close to my, now I know it's purple, but like I have like some pink in my skin, and I think it like blends into my skin a little bit better than some other like more traditionally nude shades. But that's just me. So we're gonna construct a little bit of a look here. I'm just gonna do like something fairly simple. Somebody asked me a while ago how I use the Mayron mixing medium. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Now, when I show you how I do it, because I do it this way, I don't know that this is the right way. It's the way that I do it. So someone might in the comment section might be appalled about the way that I do this, and it might not be the right way, but it's the way that I do it. So I think in theory, if you're like a professional makeup artist, you need to scrape out the eyeshadow in order to do it. But this is personal use makeup. While I do want things to stay clean, I don't need to be as, sanitation is like not my biggest priority for my personal makeup. Like if you were a makeup artist working on clients, yeah, scraping out the shadows and then mixing the mixing medium on like a palette like this would be the way that you should do that. I'm not a working makeup artist, and I use all of my eyeshadows on myself, and I let my friends use them sometimes. So there's that. That was the lighter matte shade, and now I'm gonna take the deeper matte shade, just really focus it on the outer corner. Like again, very simple stuff here. I went day drinking yesterday for the first time in like a very long time. Like I haven't done that in a while, and I feel really good today. I feel like we paced really well. We finished around like 7 o'clock, and so like we started around noon, and like we weren't drinking back to back to back, but we were like consistently drinking, and it was a very fun day. I went to this bar. It's called Bridges and Bourbon. Anyway, if you're in Pittsburgh, I've heard the food's not good. I just ended up, we were sitting at the bar and drinking. It's like the closest we have to like a cocktail bar that's like doing experimental things, which I didn't know, and that was not something I realized until I went in. I had two very, very cool beverages there. One was, there was smoked ice in it, and I'm not 100% sure how they did that. Now, so I know you might be like, why wouldn't you have asked when you were there? Here's what I'm gonna tell you. Had I asked, I would not be able to regurgitate whatever that person said to me about how that ice was smoked. You know, sometimes there's just magic in science, and I know it's science and not magic, but like there's magic in me not knowing how the science works. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's important to remember that, like, I'm not a scientist. I don't need to know how this works. Lucky for all of us, I'm not mixing chemicals together most of the time. I know not to mix like ammonia and bleach together. And I think that's as far as my science knowledge needs to go. Next, I'm going to take this shimmer shade right here, and I'm going to focus it on the outer third, almost kind of just going right over where that darker brown is, but not really taking it all the way onto the lid. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to use the Mehron mixing medium, and I'm going to go into this duochrome shade here. This is not included in my favorites. I'm just, we're doing a little bit of a learning moment because someone had asked. I'm going to put like the smallest amount of the Mehron mixing medium onto my mixing palette. And then I'm going to take a synthetic flat shader brush. So something like this. I think this one's from BH Cosmetics. This was gifted to me from a friend. And then I really saturate the brush. And then I take my palette again here. So some people I feel like are gonna squeam. I'm just going to take it on the one side. I always like to put my mixing medium on the one side of these Pat McGrath shadows, only because if I ever want to go in with a dry brush, I can have the other side, because I'm fairly certain like it hard pans whenever I use the mixing medium right on the shadow. So if you do want to scrape it out, you can scrape it out, but that's just not what I do, because if I am going to be using these special shades, I'm always going to be like using my finger or a mixing medium. In all cases, like that's going to be what happens. I have it fully filled with product right now, and then you just swipe it on. This shade is not the most impactful shade without the mixing medium, and it's not even really the most impactful with it, but I'm just taking it on all of that bare lid space and taking another synthetic brush that's clean and kind of just blending out the edges while it's still a little bit damp, because once it dries, it's set. Like it's gonna be set. I'm gonna go back into the shade, that shimmer shade that was on the outer side here, and blend it right over where there's like a little bit of an edge where the mixing medium stops, because kind of like when you use like a glitter glue or something, there just tends to be like a little bit of a harsher line. I think it's also important to keep in mind that I'm not really super precious about my makeup. I want it to be used. I don't really care that it looks used. And I think that some people, whenever you're buying a Pat McGrath palette, which I understand, you want to keep it like as aesthetically appealing as possible because it's expensive. I've learned that feeling like so precious about my makeup, no matter how luxury, is only a hindrance to me. And I recently gave my best friend the Chantecaille foundation that I did not want. And they were like, I can't take this from you. I don't want to use it. And I said, it's not getting used here. It's meant to be used. It is makeup. If you really like want to use special shade shadows as liner, you have to really get it very wet in the pan of the eyeshadows, because you kind of almost need it to be like a liquid in there. I mean, at least that's how I found it to be the best. I haven't used these shadows as liners in a while, but that's what I would do. Also, another thing is you kind of have to, while the medium is drying, kind of keep your eye in the same place while it's setting. So you kind of look like Jennifer Coolidge. Now I'm going to take a very fluffy brush, and I'm going to go into this really sparkly, very textured shade. And I'm going to like lean forward, and I'm just going to sweep that over top of the shade we put on with the Mehron mixing medium. I always do my eyes first, and that is admittedly a very messy way to use that type of eyeshadow. So I'm gonna clean up with a little bit of tape. If you like to do your base first, I wouldn't do what I just did, but I really wanted that like very wet looking topper effect that shadow does. But I didn't want it to be like fully pigmented. Just wanted it to be like a wash. And then what I'm gonna now do is, I still have some leftover mixing medium. I'm gonna take a different synthetic brush. It's a little bit smaller. And I'm gonna go into like this white light duochrome. I'm gonna use that on the inner corner. I'm going to zoom you in so you can like see the eyes up closer. Very easy, very beautiful, but very highly impactive. And that's like why I like this eyeshadow palette, because it's like you can do this, which is like a lot for the daytime, or you can do something much more subtle. And after I use the Mehron mixing medium, I like to keep my palettes just like open on my vanity. I mean, if you have cats or kids or something, I guess that's not something you would want to do. I don't have cats nor kids, and my dog learned very early not to be interested in my makeup products because she learned the hard way. We both learned the hard way. Originally, it was the Natasha Denona 28 pan green palette, and now it is Divine Rose 1. What is so funny is that I actually owned this palette the last time I did. It's like not that I acquired this palette since that video, it is something I had in real time. So it's interesting just how my taste has changed. Next, I'm gonna talk about a lip balm, and I didn't do a lip balm on my original one, but I'm gonna call the Auric Plush Ritual as my lip balm. And I just always throw this on, well, before or like while I'm applying makeup, so that if I'm applying lipstick, my lips will be like ready for that. So a new category addition to this video. Maybe next year it'll be a different lip balm. Who can be sure? Right now, this is like my only lip balm, so I'm not saying like, I can't really be too hype about it, but it is a very nice lip balm. Feels very luscious on my lips. It feels very thick. It kind of stays in place. Doesn't feel like it's getting all over my face. I feel like it doesn't really like wear off as fast as like other lip balms do, like from like drinking things or, just like eating. It's like, I just feel like my lips really like this lip balm. So in my last video, the primer that I chose was the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. And this time it is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. Some of you might be surprised by that because it's not the one that I'm reaching for the most anymore. However, if I only had one face primer and like I wasn't a content creator and I didn't want to like play with my complexion all that much and I wanted something fuss-free, like that is the primer, it's this one. There have been very few foundations that I have used with this primer that haven't gone on with it. Those are maybe foundations that are too fussy to exist. I don't mind playing with different primers with foundations to make them work, because sometimes whenever you get them to work, they're really, really beautiful. They just like don't work with some primers. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. But I don't want to use an oil primer every time I do my foundation. And that's what I've been using a lot of recently. But this is just like a ride or die. It's a lovely product. This is the jumbo size. So this has like 3.4 fluid ounces of product. And I like to use this when I'm reviewing foundation. It's a classic for a reason. It just is a very lovely, lovely primer. And it's kind of fuss-free. It smells just... Man, it smells so good. It smells lovely. It is expensive, and I'm gonna say that it's not. I take into consideration, and this is not gonna be the truth for everyone. So remember that before you comment at me, okay? I don't wear makeup every day. I wear makeup a few times a week. I wear it in videos and I wear it when I leave the house if I'm going somewhere. And what that means is that I am not running through my everyday makeup so quickly. So whenever I would buy the regular size one, that lasted me almost 2 years. Now, another thing to take into consideration is also now at this point with the makeup collection that I have multiple primers to rotate through. So once this is used up, I don't need to immediately buy it again because I have other primers that I'm gonna want to use or can use in its stead. But it took me 2 years to like finish the full size one. And the reason I bought the bigger one this time is because I knew I was gonna end up doing more foundation reviews this year. And I like to use this as my face base. I understand that if you had to buy this every 2 months because you're using it every day, $65 is like too much for something like that. If you're not wearing makeup every day and you want just like a really lush, lovely experience for your primer, and this primer just brings your skin back to life a little bit and preps it for foundation, has a little bit of a gripping quality, and the vitamins in it are antioxidants, so it's gonna help block free radicals from the air. So there is some benefits to it, but it's just a very lovely primer. I like it for the overall experience of using it, from the scent to the consistency to those gripping qualities. Those are all the reasons that I really like the face base. Amanda Z says that it does like a little bit of like blurring, and it might do that. It's not something that I would say is like a big selling point. It's like not a pore filling primer. I don't think it enhances pores either, but I just think it's like just a very nice, solid, it's gonna really set your skin up for success for what most foundations that you're gonna put on top of it. In my original video for foundation, I picked the Surratt Dewdrop foundation. In this video, it's maintaining. I love the Surratt Dewdrop foundation. It is, if there is any foundation that I am chasing for maybe a more affordable alternative, and I definitely have used foundations that are less expensive that are beautiful. There is something about this foundation that really is just like the be-all end-all foundation for me. It's light coverage, but it is one of those foundations within reason. It feels like you're putting a filter on your face as opposed to putting foundation on your face. So not like a full coverage. You went from blemishes to no blemishes or like redness to no redness. The soft focus look of your skin when you're wearing it is like as close to a filter as you can get in real life. Your skin is still showing through it. Like if you have freckles, your freckles are still gonna show through it. They're gonna be like diffused. Your pores are it's just doing a lot of favors without like covering up. And whenever I'm wearing makeup, I'm not like trying to cover things up. My skin is pretty good as it is. And that's like, I'm not saying that to brag, but I think that's like important to keep into consideration as I'm talking about products too. Is like, these are my favorites because it's like my skin and all those things. So like, I don't have like acne to cover up or acne scarring to cover up because I just like don't have that. So it's like, I can understand why someone who has those issues might want something more full coverage. But for me, this is the perfect foundation. However, I do have some qualms with it. I'm gonna link my review of this foundation, which I did just last year, but I had been using the foundation for a year before I ended up reviewing it. I hate the packaging. This is not the packaging. It comes in a dropper tube, not like this kind of dropper. It has like a button on the bottom of the bottle, so when you turn it upside down you press it. It's just like a pretty inconsistent experience. So I was trying to push down the pump and I pushed too hard and I like pushed my finger through it. That did not happen with my first bottle. It just happened with this bottle, and when I say I was pushing on it, I was pushing on it with the bottom the bottom of a brush, and it just like poked a hole right through it. I saved what I could in this Tupperware container. I think that it should speak mountains that even though I really absolutely hate the mechanism that the Surratt foundation comes in, that the product inside is like my favorite. Like, you know, I just, the quality of it is so good and just like, I think worth my time. I understand that at the price point that this foundation is sold, that you would not want to fuss with packaging that is really annoying. But it's one of those scenarios where it's like, it doesn't matter to me because the product is like my favorite foundation product. The other thing about it is like, you don't really need a lot of it. The purpose isn't really coverage. The purpose is like to get that beautiful soft focus effect with it. Another thing I love about this foundation is that it works really well with like a brush, a sponge, or your hands. And I mean, like, it works really well with your hands, especially because of the amount of coverage that this product provides. It just leaves your skin just like, not like looking wet and dewy, which is something that I definitely like, but it just gives your skin like this healthy glow, not something that wouldn't happen in your skin naturally. So here it is over here. I barely used any of what I actually got out of that container to achieve this, but as you can see, it's just a soft blur. You can still see that I have this here. You can still see I have like a small little blemish right there. It's still coming through, but it's like soft focus. My redness is, you know, neutralized, as a foundation should do anyway, but I'm just saying, like, not about coverage, mostly just about evening things out, making your skin look really beautiful. That's the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation. Again, I will link it down in the description box too, but I did a full detailed review if you want like all of the details about it. But yeah, this maintains as my favorite foundation. Just like, I mean, look at my skin. Next up would be concealer. So in 2021, when I did this video, the winner was the YSL Touche Éclat Radiant Touch Concealer. That is certainly no longer it. And if you have been here for a while, you know that I just, not a few months ago, I fully panned one of those that I had been working on for a couple of years, and there's not even a lot of product in there. I got really sick of that concealer towards the end there, and it might have been a matter of like, I was just like, the product was changing and it wasn't working as well. And I still like that concealer a lot. It like might be when I revisit down the line. But I think something that was kind of important to me, like coming into the new year with like the big declutter I did at the end of last year, I like really just want to be like a one concealer kind of person. And it doesn't mean I won't try other concealers in the future, but if I end up liking one more than the concealer that I'm currently using, it'll just be like a switch off. So I'm just like, I just want to be a one concealer kind of person. It's not the YSL Touche Éclat. It is the Armani Luminous Silk Concealer. And if you follow my journey, you know this is the only concealer I have. Here's why this ended up being the top of the top. Now, I still had some Radiant Touch concealers that I hadn't opened yet, and I also had a NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer going. And the reason that I like kept this one is that I like the consistency of it. It's a very light formula, not very thick, but it has an incredible amount of pigmentation for the thinness of the formula. And literally it just is a matter of how much concealer you put on is the amount of coverage you're gonna get. So if you put on a lot, you're gonna get like a lot of coverage from it. But if you're very, very careful with the amount that you apply and how far you take it and blend it out, you're gonna get something that's more consistent with your foundation. You know, it's just like one of those things where it's highly adaptable. And I think that's like one of those things that's really important to me whenever I'm considering like, if I could only have one, it needs to be something where I can take it to the next level and like make it more coverage, make it less coverage, make it everyday, spot conceal with it, brighten with it. You know, like it's one of those things, it's like one of those things that has to like kind of do it all. This is capable of it. I only really use concealer under my eyes for like a slight bit of brightening. And That's what I really use this for. I don't like to use a lot of this. I just do like a little dot there and a little dot out there. I'm like letting the product like just touch my skin. Like the doe foot's not even making full contact with my skin. It might just be because like my skin is aging a little bit, but when I see people do like the big triangles under their eyes, I go, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's just like so much product. And I also have like a fold right underneath my eye, and concealer really loves to get caught in there. Definitely the more product that I put in there, the worse it looks. Also, if I was like really wanted to take it there, I could do some on my forehead and on my nose, but I just like don't do that all the time. Just a little bit of brightening, a little bit more coverage under the eyes. I don't really have like dark circles under my eyes, so this is more just like for like a lifting effect and like a little bit of a highlighting effect. You know what's really funny is I don't actually like the Luminous Silk foundation. I really, really love the concealer. The foundation made me look old. It settled into all of my fine lines and pores, and it was really confusing to me that it tends to be one of those foundations that people with maturing skin seem to like. I don't even have like the most mature skin, and it like did not like my skin. Next up is like kind of contouring stuff. This is a product by default. So the last contouring product was the Rhodile Instaglam contouring powder, which they do not make anymore. It is discontinued. And I think it was even discontinued when I was talking about it in that video. Today, I'm going to be using the Fenty Cheeks Out bronzer. This is technically a bronzer, but it's in the shade Amber, which is much more of a contour shade if you have skin on the more fair side like I do. Would I recommend this to you? No. And is it the thing that I'm gonna buy again when I'm done with it? No. I am really just trying to get through it. That is really my goal. So I do use this every time I do my makeup. And it is like a really, really nice soft sculpting that this product does. There's so much product in here. I'm just kind of sick of it. I'm just so sick of it. And like, I think if you asked me when I first got it, I would be like, yeah, I absolutely recommend this to everyone who could use it as a contouring shade. And now I'm just like, don't buy it. Don't buy it. There's so much product in it. What could another contouring product bring to me that this one isn't? I don't know. I mean, I still like it. I like the way it looks. I like the effect of it. Just like I'm just sick of it. I really think because of the light pigmentation of it, if you are not like going in, like I get a lot of product on that brush and I still feel like it doesn't apply too heavy. And so if you are someone who's afraid of contouring, this could be a good product for you. But I'm like not afraid of contouring, so I'm like just ready for something that isn't this. Like maybe something that is a little more tedious, maybe something that has a little more pigment to it. I really like looking snatched. We're actually gonna put a contouring powder over top of this later because I'm being a little bit extra. I do actually normally do that. Like, well, I'll do like a little bit of contouring with creams first, and then I will do contouring with powder on top of it. A little bit of a drag thing. This isn't my normal order of operations, but since I'm doing creams right now and the rest is powder, I'm gonna apply it now. For blush, in my original video, I talked about the Pat McGrath blushes, the Divine blushes. My favorite blush now is the Kjaer Weis Inner Glow blush. I can't speak to any of the other shades from Kjaer Weis, but for me and my skin tone and this is just like that. I'm gonna say it again. Blush with the je ne sais quoi. It is completely agreeable to work with and it just looks so good. There's like not a lot to it, but it adds like a little bit of a flush to your skin. I mean, like, what is that? Like, is that pink? What is that? It's like almost like flesh tone, but like not really. But it's not like brown. It has that reflect to it that's a little bit silver. It's so subtle, but so perfect. I think they make, like if you have a deeper complexion than me, I think they have other glow shades that kind of do the same thing for deeper complexions. I'm not 100% sure about that because I think they have. I didn't really look into it. Whenever I bought this, I was like just beelining it for this shade because it was recommended to me by a lot of my subscribers. And I know why. They really got me. They really said, Tom, we're listening to you and we know what you would like. And one does not have to opt into this packaging, but packaging is something that I get really snobby about and like I really enjoy. And so this packaging, this like the most luxe version of their packaging, because they have a cardboard option too, and they also can just buy the Pro Pan and throw it into a magnetic palette. This also, like just this whole component adds a lot to the experience for me. That is why this is my favorite blush. I am going to choose two powders because I have a highlighting powder, not a highlighter, highlighting powder, and then I also have like an all over the face powder. So the highlighting powder I just put under the eyes and like down the center of my face. For that, it is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Brightening Flawless Filter Powder. I'm not a huge fan of Charlotte Tilbury. You all know that. And I'm sure that there are other products that do this. I just like kind of stumbled into this when I was doing the Charlotte Tilbury review that I did in December. But like, I really had a great time with this. I just like the way it blurs. It's like really, really blurring, but it also does some brightening, right? Like this certainly isn't a powder for all over the face. So if you look on the side that I use it versus the side that I didn't, obviously it mattified, but it also just like brightens and blurs. And that really, really does it for me. I have tried the Pat McGrath under eye blurring powder, but I found that unlike this one from Charlotte Tilbury, really, really made me look really dry if I wasn't paying attention. And this Charlotte Tilbury one, it kind of doesn't really matter how much you put on. It still looks the same. It doesn't feel like you can really easily go overboard like you can with the Pat McGrath one. Against my own volition, I love the Charlotte Tilbury brightening powder. But for the rest of the face, in my original video, I talked about the Hourglass Loose Setting Powder, which is still a lovely powder. I just haven't now used it in a couple of years because I've had so much powder to get through. You know, it's gotta be the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Powder. And I think when I did that video, I'm not even sure if I had the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Powder. It's like not even on that list, which seems really bizarre. But it might be before I really understood the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Powder, but now I get it. I mean, if you're new here, hello, there's pan. There's not a lot of products that I can say that like I hit pan on. So you can tell that it's loved. Why do I like this? I mean, it does what it promises. It blurs. Now, obviously, it's not gonna do magic, right? It's not an Instagram filter, but it gives us the closest effect that we could get to an Instagram filter in real life. It's just something that softly blurs, and just like working with the Surratt foundation plus the Charlotte Tilbury powder. And on camera, like obviously camera beauty lights, you have to take that into mind. Like it does make it look like I have less pores, like no pores. In real life, I still look like I have pores, but they are diffuse. This with the Surratt Dewdrop foundation like really does it for me. Just makes my skin look so good and seamless, and I just love it. As I said earlier, the Rodial Instaglam contouring powder was the contouring product that I talked about. We're gonna be using Kevyn Aucoin's contouring powder in medium. This is my favorite right now. It's gonna be my favorite in this video. I don't know that whenever I have used this up and I'm gonna buy my own, like buy another contouring powder, don't know if I'm gonna visit this one. I would love to try another brand, but I feel like contouring powder in singles is kind of hard to find. They always sell like contour palettes. I'm not personally fair, light, medium, deep, but I don't need a contour powder that's gonna cater to all those. I just need the light part. Which I also feel like a lot of contouring powders, a lot of companies have decided for us that we don't want a cool tone contour, meaning fairer people, it's a little bit different when your skin's deeper. You might not want something that is so gray because it will look ashy on your skin tone. I really want that cool toned, effect to it. So I really like this powder. I think it's really easy to work with. It's really blendable. And like, I understand why it was so popular back in the day, but like, I'm not 100% committed to it. And I actually think I like the Rodial Instaglam powder better than the Kevyn Aucoin. Both are beautiful, but I think if I was like inclined to buy one again, it would be the Rodial one, which I can't. So for bronzing, in my original video, I talked about the Tom Ford bronzer in 02 Terra as my favorite, and it remains. Now, you might be like wondering to yourself, Tom, you've tried so many other bronzers recently. How is the Tom Ford one still holding up? I really do love cream bronzer. I have found that I can really overdo it with cream bronzer if I'm not paying attention. And I don't know what it is about bronzer as a product specifically that I feel like I'm going overboard, like where I'm not paying attention and I'm just like talking and just applying more bronzer. It's just like something that happens. And I have found that a combination of this with this is just like kind of, and this is like right now my favorite way to apply bronzer. And I just like the effect of this bronzer. For me and my skin tone, this shade of bronzer just is like, it's not too warm. It lands right in the middle. And I find that cream bronzers really sway one way or the other. The Charlotte Tilbury cream bronzer in the Farrah shade, it really reads more yellow. Like it's a yellow leaning bronzer, but it also kind of verges on green too. And it looks gray in the pan, but it's much warmer on the skin than it is in the pan. And the Chanel one, it's much more neutral than the Charlotte Tilbury one, but it like leans more red. Whereas this bronzer it's just like the perfect tone for my skin. Very expensive, but you know, like I was talking about with the primer, it's not something that I'm going to like run through excessively fast. And I have been using this consistently for the last year, and like I still can see the TF. Maybe it's not showing up on camera, but it's much more faded, and a lot of the embossing on top is like starting to wear off. That's always with 2 years of consistent use. Like I'm like still barely making a dent into it. And I also got that through Gilt. Whenever they were discontinuing that size, I like snagged it for $50. So I didn't pay the I think it was like $127 for that size whenever it was like at full price. I remember cheating with the highlighter, and I picked two because I picked a highlight and then I picked the highlight intensifier. Both of them are from Ritual Defeat. I picked the metamorphic highlighters from Ritual Defeat and the Alchemist, and those are very, 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 very sparkly highlighters, and I still really love them, but they don't reign supreme. And I think you're all gonna know what I picked for a highlighter, and if you don't, then let me tell you why. It's the Auric Glow Lust and Morganite. I know I can't shut up about this. I know I've been talking about it for a long time, but here's the thing. When you're spending time loving your makeup collection, what you already have, this is how I should feel about the stuff in my collection. I should feel excited to use it every time. I should feel excited to tell you about it every time. If you're not familiar with this product, this is like a liquid highlighter thing. You can mix it in with your foundation. You can use it as a primer. You can kind of just use it as a complexion product too. It's going to be a really glowy complexion base if you just kind of use it as foundation, because it does have some coverage to it. You can apply it on to your cheeks like a regular highlighter. You can mix it in with a liquid blush to make it glowier or to like diffuse the color of it. There's just so much you can do with it. And I think when we're talking about having just one thing, if I'm picking one highlighter, because of the versatility of this, that is why. And I still love my Ritual Defeat highlighters. I still think of them very highly. Like if I didn't have this, it probably would be the Ritual Defeat highlighters again, even though I have been using powder highlighter a little bit more recently. This just like reigns supreme. My favorite way to wear it, but because we're applying things one by one, so I couldn't apply it this way in this video, I would prime my whole face with Bobbi Brown. Then on my cheeks, I would apply this as a primer, a glowy primer, and then I would put the foundation on. And so then it would be really glowy on my cheeks, kind of like underpainting it. And then I would also apply it on top. But today we're just gonna apply it on top. And my skin, as you all know, I like it glossy and glowy. So I have been told by people that it doesn't really seem that I need to do the highlighting step, but highlighting remains one of my favorite things. I love razzle dazzle. I love the sparkle. And what I like about it is, as you know, we already powdered. You can press it in over top of powder and it's really agreeable, which like not all liquid highlighters will do that. I used to have the Cover FX drops and I could not get those things to work for me. And I bet if I would have gotten those to work for me, I would have liked them a lot. And like, it's kind of the same concept, right? Mix in with your foundation. But I found that whenever I was using the Cover FX drops on top of the skin, on top of powder, or even before I would powder, it would like just mess up the rest of my makeup. And this does not do that. It does a little bit of soft focusing, a lot of blur. You know I'm into the blur. We've kind of talked about it through many of the steps. Beautiful, wonderful, amazing. I'm going to say one thing and do another. So in my original video, I was talking about the Pat McGrath eyeliners, and I really like the Pat McGrath eyeliners. I'm not much of an eyeliner connoisseur, so I haven't tried a lot of eyeliners. I'm actually currently testing one for a brand review, and I really like them. My favorite is different, except I don't have a color that works with this color scheme, and if I had to start over and buy the right color, I would. So the Kofi eyeliners, they're the best. They're the best. They are expensive for what they are. Like and this happens to me all the time. It kind of falls out of the component. Whatever, it still works. The product inside is still beautiful. I like how thin they are. They remind me of the Marc Jacobs fine liners. They're a little bit bigger than the fine liners were. And this shade, Tiger Queen, is really beautiful, but I'm not always doing like warm tone looks like that. And like, I mean, obviously if we're going under the assumption that this would be my only palette, this leans a little bit more middle of the road, almost like cool toned leaning pinks, like desaturated pinks. I just don't think this would really look good with what I have going on the eye. They do make like a brown and a black, and I would definitely buy one of those two to be my everyday eyeliner, but I only have this, and they were kind enough to send this to me. It's a very, 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 very good eyeliner. It's like really, really good. And this is what I recommend. Because I have black coffee from Pat McGrath, I'm actually gonna use it in this look because I would want this color in the Kofi formula. Not that I don't like the Pat McGrath formula, because it is a really nice formula. The Kofi eyeliner just glides on a little bit easier than the Pat McGrath one. I don't think I talked about setting spray, but I imagine if I had talked about setting spray, it probably would have been the MAC Fix Plus, and that has not changed. Now, I think an important thing to keep in mind with Fix Plus is it's not a setting spray that is designed to like hold your makeup into place. It's like more of like a finishing spray to like, if you have any powders that are still looking powdery, helps that settle all the way in and feel more skin-like. But also, it smells good. I like the sprayer on it. And it does like a little bit of a glycerin-y effect where it's kind of like a little bit more blurry, but then it also makes me look a little more glowy, which we have already talked about that is like a desired effect for me. For mascara, I only really try one mascara at a time. Thing is, I cannot settle on a mascara, and every time one comes out that people really like, it's like I feel so inclined to try it, but then I just am using it for 3 months and then there's a new one, right? Like I just feel like that's how it comes out. So in this video, I talked about the Shock mascara, which is no longer made. I'm going to be using the Tower 28 mascara. What is it actually called? Tower 28 Make Waves mascara, this is an awesome mascara. It really, really is. Between this, the Tarte one that I use, the Tarte Tubing mascara, and the Lash Clash from YSL, I don't want to have all three at once, but like I can only recall what I can recall because I am human. But in all of the pictures that I have used with this, the YSL one and the Tarte one, I like the look of all three of them. Like, I think they all look good. So while Tower 28 does take over for the Shock in this video, who knows what I'll be using next year? I don't even know that I'm committed to buying this one again in April whenever I'm at my 3-month mark with it. Like, I don't know. I haven't decided. Like, I just don't know. Anyway, let me apply this. It's just really beautiful. This is like if you are someone who doesn't like wearing false lashes, but you kind of really want a dramatic lash, this is the mascara for you. A lot of people are waiting for them to make it in brown, which I hope they do because, you know, I think that would be smart of them. And I think if there's a market for it, I think this would be too dramatic for a brown mascara, but that's like, you know, personal calls there. This is going to be a really weird segue. I came across this TikTok account of this person who like keeps spiders as pets. They're jumping spiders and they're like little guys. I mean, big spiders, like if I saw one in my house, I'd be like, oh no, not you, not in my house, not on tonight. The person was kind of showing you that sorry, I'm just showing you the mascara, was kind of to prove that like spiders have personalities and like they had names for all of them, but they all kind of look the same. So it's not, but they all had like personalities and like they would want to like be picked up, like, and they would like physically communicate that to the person who owns them. And I just thought that was really wild. And I thought that was really relevant while we were talking about mascara. For lip liner, in my original video, I talked about the Pat McGrath lip liners, but I also confessed that I am not super well versed in lip liner. And I think that that still stands. I have now tried some more lip liner formulas, but the lip liner formula that I'm going to talk about today is the Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheats. Not super impressed with Charlotte Tilbury as a brand, but I found that these are very lovely. Very glidey. I find that a lot of the other pencils that I've tried for lip liners are really dry and kind of like hard to blend out on the lips. But I found this formula to be really agreeable, very easy to blend, and then once it sets, it's like good to go. I find that the Pat McGrath ones are like really dry, hard to blend. Like actually they were not even my favorite lip liner probably when I was talking about them. I only had them and that was it. Like I wasn't buying other lip liners because sometimes it feels pointless to me, but I do like to be able to like define the lips. And I don't really love this shade. If I could go back in time and buy a different lip cheat, I would probably buy a different color. But this is the Hollywood Honey shade. And in that original video, I said that the Patrick Daha lipsticks were my favorite lipsticks. I have tried a lot of lipstick formulas over the course of the last year, and I liked a lot of the ones that I tried. Definitely liked a lot of the colors I tried. I feel like I really honed into the kind of colors that I really like to wear, like those browns, like grungier colors, are like really what I like to wear on my lips. I thought really long and hard about this. I really did. But I think the thing that I would run back to and buy immediately if I had to like start all over, my favorite lipstick formula is the Merit Signature Lip. And this is the shade 1990, and it would be this shade. Like it would be exactly this shade. These are just, they feel like chapstick, but they have some pigment to them and they just feel really lovely. They feel nourishing on the lips. My personal experience with these is that while it does feel like a chapstick and it feels super emollient and it feels like something that would move around, it stays in place relatively well. It's not like the longest lasting lipstick. It's certainly a lipstick that you would have to apply again later in the day. Like, it's not gonna last through eating and drinking, but it's just so comfortable and it's just the right brown and it just like feels really good on my lips. And sometimes when you're wearing a lip color, it feels like a lot of upkeep throughout the day, but I know whenever this lipstick wears off, it's just gonna look like my lips maybe like a little bit more stained, like a little bit darker. I don't feel like I even have to reapply it, like if I don't want to, right? Like it'll just naturally wear off over the course of the day and it won't look crazy. But like whenever you wear something really, really pigmented over the course of the day, it's like you certainly either need to touch up or make that actual choice to take it off. I just like feel like this is like a no fuss lipstick and you just can't beat the comfort. It feels like you just have chapstick on your lips and that's just the best. So this is just why I chose the Merit Signature Lip. Other things in contention were the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude in Noah, which is it's great. The Givenchy Velvet Matte Lipstick formula, and that might actually be my favorite formula of lipstick. I just have one color in it, and it's orange, which is a beautiful color, and I love it a lot. I think the point is to like kind of keep it cohesive, and I only have certain colors and certain formulas. I'm not the kind of person who needs to have everything in every shade. It's like I have this brown lipstick, and while I have purchased other brown lipsticks since I received this 1990 lipstick from Merit and PR, they're different. All my browns are different. I'm very specific about the browns. So I know which brown I want to wear whenever I want to wear a brown. I have the Givenchy Velvet Matte Lipstick, Sheer Velvet Matte Lipstick in the brick shade, but I don't feel compelled to go buy a bunch of shades of that because I have that one. I love it. You know what I mean? This one kind of wins overall for color, but I also thought it makes the most sense because I have the ability to make a cohesive look with it that I should. And so it's like, it all needs to make sense from the tip top to the bottom. Now, I did talk about a lip gloss, and it was the Pat McGrath lip glosses. And so the Pat McGrath lip glosses would probably be my favorite lip glosses. As of now, they're being dethroned right now. I have a lip gloss that I've been testing for an upcoming like overall brand review, and I like those lip glosses a lot more. It's been going well for that brand. I'm just gonna say it. So anyway, this is it. These are my top tier. If you're interested in any of these products, I will have them all linked down below. If you were to click on those links, they are affiliate links and I will receive a small commission should you decide to purchase through them. There's no pressure to buy anything from this video, by the way, because I want you to love your collection as it is. So if you were to start over with all of the things that you have ever owned or tried, what is your top shelf? What is the one thing that you would recommend to the rest of us? You'd be like, this is top shelf. I'd be very interested to hear what your top shelf item is. You don't need to tell me your whole regimen, but like what's the most important thing that the rest of us need to know about. If you are new here and you enjoyed today's video, thank you so much for watching all the way through. I would love to have you subscribe and stick around. Make sure you like this video. That helps me and this video get into the eyes of more people who might be benefited by my content or just might enjoy my content. And again, I'm on patreon.com, but again, no pressure to support me there. If you are here watching my videos all the way through, you are doing the most, and I appreciate you for that. That's it. So Wednesday is Critical Sass Live, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna talk crap about makeup. I would love to see you there. Remember, Hoties, to follow your hote, and you will find me. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.